UK timeout on Radio Biafra, AM. News breaks from across the United Kingdom. Incisive analysis by the People's Parliament. Our panel dissects the topic of the week and listeners interact.
Also featuring Great Biafran history, education, awareness, and enlightenment, plus entertainment galore.
Tune in to the UK timeout on Radio Biafra. Sundays from 7:30 p.m. Biafran time and British Summer Time. Set out for a fabulous week ahead with the UK timeout on Radio Biafra. News, views, previews and reviews. Join us.
America wonder, man or woman, Nigeria stone, oh yeah, gravity, oh yeah, inside Niger, everywhere, Nigeria,
Good evening from here, good morning, good afternoon, good night, where you are. Welcome to the UK Timeout on Radio Biafra. I'm your host, Ikechukwu Nice Mwokoro Ichie Machinemere. I hail from Onitsha, Ezilihite, Inowere Province, Biafra land. And I serve my beloved Biafrans in the capacity of the IPOB United Kingdom National Coordinator. As usual on this program, we start with a word of prayer in Igbo, the language of heaven. Chukwunna kereli benala, Chukwu okabia monyana isi alanye, anya abekwa ọzọ taa ụbọchị ụka, ụbọchị ahịa orie, inyege ekele pụrụ iche iji aha nsọ gị mma, isi gị nna imeela ndewo nara otito nara mbuli elu nara ntụrụ ugo n'ihi na ihe niile anyị na-enye gị oruhu dị iji nye gị ekele ozughị oke mana anyị weta isi nye gị ya nakwa arịọ gị mgbaghara mmehie ụzọ niile anyị echila mmehie na-arịọ gị amara ebere gị ka ọ bara anyị ụba na-arịọ gị nchekwa mkpuchigide ojiji na nhazi na ntụziaka nke gịwa ka ha wee dịrị anyị mma. Eze biko lụrụ anyị ọgụ, were anyị ụzọ, wara anyị ụzọ ebe ụzọ na-adịghị, gọzie anyị ezinụlọ anyị, ụmụ nwaanyị anyị, ụmụ nwoke anyị, ụmụaka anyị, gọzie ụmụ Biafra ebe ọbụla na-anọ na. Olu gị nwoke onye ndu anyị Maazị Nnamdi Kanu na kpuchidekwu ya, gọzie ya, chekwaa ya, ya na ezinụlọ ya, nwaanyị ya, lọlọ Uchechi ga-eme okwu Kanu, ụmụ ya, Nna Emeka, Nnabike, kpuchigide ha ka ụkọsị ekpuchigide ụmụ, ekwekwala ka aka ndị iro rute ha n'ahụ, ekwekwala ka anya ndị iro hụ ha. Ụmụ Biafra niile ebe ụlọ na-anọ na eze kpuchigide anyị, ndị isi anyị, ndị Directorate of State, ndị niile na-aga ozi n'ụzọ dị iche iche. Eze wara anyị ụzọ, ekwekwala ka ndị iro chi anya ọchị, ekwekwala ka ha jiri anyị mee ihe akaja. Ọgụ anyị na-alụ inwere onwe anyị, ichekwa ala nke nyere anyị ala Biafra. Eze, anyị bụ onye isi agha, anyị nọ na ọba agha, agịkwana mma agha nke anyị ji lụrụ anyị ya bụ ọgụ, wee ka mmeri bụrụ nke anyị. N'ikpeazụ anyị butekwara gị abụ ekele na otuto pụrụ iche n'ihi na o kwesịrị gị. Arịọ m gị taa nakwa arịọ gị echi na ụbọchị niile nke ndụ m na-abịa abịa, kpezuru na ị ga-eme karịrị oke anyị yọrọ na oke anyị tụrụ anya ya, n'ihi iwe onye obi ebere, iwe onye ọmịiko. Ekwetere m na ị ga-emezu arịrịọ nke arịrịọ gị site n'aha nwa gị nwoke Yeshua Hamashia. Ise 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 ise. Jehovah Wahaya, Jehovah Wahaya, Igamiluwa nine, Jehovah Wahaya, Jehovah Wahagi, Jehovah Wahagi, Igaziluwa nine, Jehovah Kanakogi. Before the news beats come, we will have a short musical interlude. This week I'm so overjoyed because two of our great convoys here in the United Kingdom, Mazi Solomon Okorie, JJ Man, and our Northwest Regional Coordinator, very versatile, formidable comrade, Mazi Mike Wajiago Jagusin, released two albums, one each, and they are trending. I'll urge us to download them. One has played at the beginning of this program. The next we will take as our musical interlude before the news beats, and then after the news beats we'll return to discuss restoring Onyendu's bell, a matter of urgency. I have legal minds in the panel today to dissect that topic, and let's put it in proper perspective. Stay tuned.
As the war of extermination of Biafra was going on, many made a pledge, saying, we shall never ever become Nigeria. Hey, we shall never ever become Nigeria. Today you turn around preaching one, Nigeria. Today you turn around preaching one, Nigeria. Destroy your children, destroy your family, destroy your family, destroy your nation, destroy your own race.
Good evening, Biafrans and lovers of freedom. You welcome to UK Timeout on Radio Biafra. I'm Mazi CJ with Wada Oge to give you this week's news beats. A federal high court sitting in Owerri, Imo State, has ruled as unjust the wrongful profiling of IPOB head of Directorate of State, Mazi Chike Doziem, as a terrorist and wanted person by the zoo government. Presiding Judge Honorable Justice I.N. Owebo delivered a landmark judgment in the suit between Mazi Chike Doziem versus Honorable Minister of Defense and Chief of Defense Staff, and consequently declared as illegal the wrongful designation of Mazi Chike Doziem as a wanted person, terrorist, insurgent, kidnappers and violent criminal by the Honorable Minister of Defense and the Chief of Defense Staff. This ruling affirms that the March 22, 2024 publication of Mazi Chike Doziem name and photograph in the Ministry of Defense first edition of 2024 as a security threat was done in a gross violation of his constitutionally guaranteed rights to dignity of human person, and as such unconstitutional. They further directed the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Defense Staff to immediately retract the unconstitutional declaration of Mazi Chike Doziem as a terrorist, insurgent, kidnapper, violent criminal and wanted person, and to issue unreserved a public apology in two national newspapers to Mazi Chike Doziem. The court also awarded 5 million naira in damages to Mazi Chike Doziem for the infringement of his fundamental right to dignity of human person. Enugu Governor Peter Mba, through his proxy, offered a huge sum of 30 billion to some community leaders in Ehamufu for them to release their communal lands for Fulani settlement. Comrade Emma Powerful Media and Publicity Secretary for IPOB warned IPOB will not allow the selfish politician to mortgage the evil future generation just to remain in power for 8 years or more. He maintains that ESN operative will continue to make Alibo uncomfortable for the Fulani terrorists until they leave Alibo. He insisted, we do not want Fulani terrorist settlement anywhere in Alibo. In another development, Mazi Chinasonworu acknowledged the outstanding work of some of the ESN and encouraged all Biafran to support these efforts. The M branch, often referred to as IPOB Intelligence Wing, has garnered a reputation for its proactive approach to ensuring the safety of the Biafran people. Their ability to gather critical intelligence, often way ahead of Nigeria State Security Agency, showcases their commitment to the people welfare. In the case of this criminality being carried out using hotels, branch operatives were able to identify suspicious activities. This proactive intelligence gathering is not merely about reporting criminal activities. It reflects a deep understanding of the land and its dynamics. The branch has established networks within local populace, fostering trust and open communication that allows for the timely exchange of information. This grassroots approach ensures that they remain attuned to the needs and the concerns of the people, making them a formidable force against crime. A disturbing trend of labeling high-profile visiting as members of Indigenous People of Biafra or ESN has emerged within Enugu Command of Nigeria Police Force.
Good evening. I am Wada Oge. The light have outshined darkness with truth again, when Governor of Rivers State, Honorable Singh, revealed in his latest speech the ongoing crisis between him and the former Governor Wike sparked up when he identified with his brother Alex Oti to unite the Igbos. Wike swore to bring him down. He further detailed that as an Opobo man, he speaks Igbo and it has always been in his dream that the Igbos unite after all we have been divided by the political boundaries for too long. I met with my brother Alex Oti to make this dream a reality in his first month in the office, to see how we can come up with a project that will bring Abia and Rivers together. The move was like hell was let open as he got a call from him that I was going to go against the Rivers agenda of not letting Igbos gain a soft landing in Rivers State. I tried to make him see reasons that these people develop our state and are law-abiding. Moreover, I am Igbo and can never stay away from my people. From the moment the plots to bring me down all started. In Anambra, traders have lamented over the shutdown of their markets by the army personnel. It was learned that while the National Agency for Food, Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, contacted the military personnel for its recent operation against drugs dealers, the soldiers refused to reopen the markets and allow lawful business to resume. This was the detriment of thousands of traders. The affected markets are Onitsha Drug Market, Oduwani, that's Power Tool and the Allied Market, Surgical Line Market, Plumbing Materials Market, the Obwogu Fashion Line Market, the Bridgehead Provision Market, and part of the Timber Dealers Market. Meanwhile, the International Society for Civil Liberty has condemned the operations which it was said was carried out in unprofessional and corrupt manners. They called for immediate reopening of the affected markets and refunding of not less than 20 billion naira being losses incurred by the innocent traders for the 6 affected markets since Sunday, February 9, 2025, particularly traders of the Onitsha Drug Market. Still in Enugu, families of the victim of the 1949 Iva Valley coal miners massacre over their demand for good working and pay conditions have taken legal action against the Nigerian government and the British government and the head of Commonwealth, demanding justice and compensation for the killings carried out by the colonial authorities. The lawsuit filed at the Enugu High Court was initiated by one Mr. Greg Nwachukwu Ono on behalf of the bereaved families. The plaintiffs are represented by human rights lawyers Professor Akinseye George San and P. Agazie. In another development, the Anambra Police Command had in a statement by its spokesperson SP Tochukwu Ikenga announced that the 2 suspects previously arrested over the death of a state lawmaker have escaped from custody. Recall that late lawmaker Honorable Azoka, elected on the platform of the Labour Party, was kidnapped at Ugunankpa Road, inland town Onitsha. According to the police, the two suspects managed to escape while they were assisting officers in an operation to apprehend the receiver of stolen goods and recover vehicles used in the gang's criminal activities. Reacting, the Speaker in a statement called on the State Commissioner of Police, CP Ikoye Orutugo, to redouble his efforts and take all necessary measures to ensure the escaped suspects.
The Zoo government continues to demonstrate a misappropriation of justice and leniency by setting 789 former terrorist combatants to currently undergo the de-radicalization, rehabilitation and reintegration DRR program under the Operation Safe Corridor OPSC initiative. Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa, represented by the Chief of Defense Policy and Plans AVM Sayo Olatunde, explained that the program was initiated in response to the mass surrender of Boko Haram and Islamic State of West Africa Province ISWAP members as a result of coordinated efforts by security agencies and other stakeholders. More than 120,000 insurgents and their families have surrendered since the program's inception, with the current batch of 789 ex-combatants expected to graduate this year. In Benue State, reports say there have been a fair reconciliation attempt between Jama'atu Ali Sunna leader Awati wa Jihad JAS, commonly known as Boko Haram, and its breakaway faction, the Islamic State West African Province ISWAP. Both groups have resumed hostilities in Abadan local government area of Benue State. According to counter-insurgent expert Zagasola Makama, the latest confrontation occurred on February 14 near ISWAP camp in Tobon Guinea and Tobon Ali. In a post on X, Makama reported that ISWAP suffered significant casualties during the battle which took place on water. He warned that the conflict could escalate and spread to Kukawa local government area, where Boko Haram continues its campaign against ISWAP. Both factions have been locked in a violent rivalry since ISWAP split from Boko Haram in 2016 and pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. Elsewhere, there was a breach of security at the Lagos State House of Assembly when members of the Lagos State House of Assembly faulted the presence of armed personnel of Department of State Security (DSS) at the Assembly complex in Ikeja on Monday. The House, at a plenary section presided over by the Speaker Mojisola Miranda, called on the State Directorate of DSS to explain the reasons for the personnel presence. The News Agency of Nigeria (NAN) reports that there was commotion at the Assembly on Monday as lawmakers and legislative staff clashed with the men of the DSS after their arrival at the chamber. The complex was shut for several hours before some legislative staff forced the chamber door open. Miranda faulted the presence of DSS men at the complex, accusing the service of intimidation and harassment of lawmakers, saying the invasion of the assembly complex by the DSS personnel was an attack on democracy.
The residents of Ogwan Ate in Kacha local government area of Kaduna State took to the streets to protest the relentless killings and kidnappings by bandits in their community. In March, the protesters blocked the entrance of the Ogwan Ate Ogwan Mission Road along Kaduna-Kachia Highway, demanding urgent intervention from the state government and security agencies to safeguard their lives and property. Carrying placards with various messages, the protesters expressed their frustrations and fear. Some of the inscriptions read, "The Kaduna government says it has made peace with the bandits, but we are being killed every day in Kachia and uncountable souls are in the bush, suffering for offense they know nothing about." In Zamfara State, protesting residents set ablaze Emir's palace in Zamfara over the rising terrorist attack. failure of security agencies. The youth stormed the streets of the town to protest against the recent abduction of 10 people by terrorists navigating the community. It was learned that the bandits also kidnapped the chief imam of Maru Central Mosque, Alhaji Salisu Suleiman, along with his 2 wives and 7 children. The state government has faced criticism for its handling of the crisis, with many calling for more decisive action to be taken against the terrorists and the bandits. The Zamfara Police Command spokesperson Yazid Abubakar declined repeated calls made for him to seek his comment.
The Western Nigeria Security Network, popularly known as Omotekun, has raided at least 114 individuals, predominantly from the northern Nigeria, following their alleged illegal entry into forest reserve across Ondo State. The move comes amid heightened security operations targeting criminal activities linked to forest hideouts. The state commander Adetunji Adeleye disclosed on Sunday that the group intercepted in 2 trucks destined for remote forest areas including Ore and Ofosu lack legitimate reasons for their presence. Former and late Governor Rotimi Akeredolu has earlier ordered evacuation of all persons unable to justify their stay in the state's forest, citing escalating security threats. Adeleye said they recovered locally made firearms and weapons from these individuals, which they used to perpetrate crimes. Their strategy is to camp in forests, attack communities, and retreat. He emphasized that where Nigeria's constitution guarantees freedom of movement, it is a must for lawful purposes. In a tragic incident, a senior Nigeria police officer and his wife have been confirmed dead after a brutal domestic altercation in Ado-Ekiti, Ekiti State. The tragedy, which occurred last Tuesday in Eta-Eku area of Ado-Ekiti, sent shockwaves through the community. According to sources, the policeman, identified simply as ASP Caleb, allegedly engaged in a heated argument with his wife, Tete, over accusation of infidelity. The situation spiraled out of control, leading to deadly confrontation. It was reported that the wife allegedly attacked the officer and cut off his manhood. In retaliation, the enraged policeman picked up machete and hacked his wife to death, smashing her head and face in a gross act of violence. Another exclusive disclosures have emerged as Jason Michael, ex-associate Abayomi, has accused Nigeria police officer of sharing 10.8 billion in a seized crypto and property with international fraudsters. Abayomi disclosed this in a petition dated February 14, 2025, filed through his lawyer AOS and Esquire and sent to the Police Service Commission and the Inspector General of Police. Mr. Abayomi Oluwasesan, an associate of international fraudsters, Jason Michael Ubi, the CEO of Africa Arbitrage System AAS, has accused police officer of illicitly transferring some of his properties to Jason and sharing the others.
A retired Nigerian soldier has made alarming allegations, claiming that the former President Muhammad Buhari's administration and the All Progressive Congress APC undermined the fight against Boko Haram terrorists during former President Goodluck Jonathan's government, allowing the terrorists to gain the upper hand against the country's armed forces. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, the soldier stated that Jonathan's administration has made significant progress against Boko Haram with the help of foreign machinery from Ukraine, Russia, and retired soldiers from the United States. However, when Buhari took office, he allegedly halted the foreign support, allowing Boko Haram to regroup and rearm. The soldier also alleged that the United Agency for International Development, USAID, funded Boko Haram terrorists in Nigeria, and that the US and UK government sabotaged Jonathan's administration in collaboration with the APC. The US mission to Nigeria has announced that the US government is set to investigate the use of past aid allocated to Nigeria and other countries. The move follows President Trump's suspension of foreign aid for 90 days due to concerns about global destabilization and malignment with American interests. The U.S. mission to Nigeria confirmed efforts to track past assistance provided by the U.S. government and condemned the ongoing violence and loss of life caused by Boko Haram in Nigeria. Boko Haram was officially designated a foreign terrorist. The U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested that large-scale fraud was perpetrated in multiple donations made by the previous United States government to countries worldwide. Trump expressed vexation about how hundreds of billions of dollars in taxpayers' money were spent on questionable programs and contracts across Africa, Asia, and Europe. The U.S. leader addressed a news conference on Tuesday at Malaki after signing 3 presidential memoranda, in addition to dozens of executive orders already in effect. Trump decried the waste uncovered by the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, saying they are finding levels of fraud and waste and abuse I think nobody ever thought possible. Incredible things are happening in our country, the president stressed. We've made more progress in 3 weeks than they've made in the 4 years, especially with respect to the reputation of our country. People are respecting us again. Christians in Democratic Republic of Congo have again been left reeling after a heinous act of violence that has left 70 believers dead. According to figures released on the sources at around 4 a.m. last Thursday, suspected militants from the Allied Democratic Forces, a group with ties to so-called Islamic State, approached homes in Nayaba in the territory of Lubero, saying, "Get out, don't make any noise." 20 Christian men and women came out and were captured. Terrified by this incident, people from the local community in Naba later gathered to work out how to release those held captive. However, the ADF militants surrounded the village and captured 50 believers. That's the news beat this week. The UK timeout continues. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
Welcome back to the UK Timeout on Radio Biafra. Edifo Melo, what has he done? What did he do? We are still asking. Why Onyendu is still languishing in illegal incarceration, unlawful detention, arbitrary arrest, and treatment. What has he done? What did he do? Why was his bail in the first place denied, or rather revoked? Why can't the bail be restored? Nearly 4 years since Onyendu had been dumped in the dungeon, the DSS shithole, under my language. There is no genuine attempt to release him or even grant him bail. The Zulu Supreme Court categorically and unequivocally admitted that revoking his bail was wrong in the first place. But as fantastically corrupt and criminal as they are, they fell short of a clear pronunciation or judgment to say, restore that bail immediately. Rather, the case was remissioned to the High Court of Binta Yaku, which the rest is history. We all know what's going on now. The first thing anybody would have thought is, before even the remission, the bail should have been restored, Onyendu should be free, and then he can attend any trial or court session that he needed to attend, which was not necessary anyway, if you ask me, from his home, or even house arrest, which he has submitted himself to. Still, they refuse to grant him bail. Tonight on the UK Time Out on Radio Biafra, we'll be looking at restoring Onyendu's bail, a matter of urgency. I have with me in the studios here very bright, sound Lego minds of the IPOB UK stock, who will do justice to that. I'm not a legally trained person, but I think also my own mind is sound, logical, and very legal. It's not illegal. We all have very legal minds. But for tonight, as you know on this program, I usually contribute to the panel. I think I'll take a back seat and listen and learn from these legal minds. That's also what I urge you, our dear listeners, to do. And as usual, remember our session here is a classroom, a lecture room, or hall. Have your pen and paper handy. We oblige you the recording afterwards so that you can always re-listen and learn more. But if you have your pen and paper handy, that will be very useful for your active, interactive participation. As usual, we will open the lines after an hour. After hearing from our panelists, then we open the lines so that you can join us. So I will, in the custom of this program, invite the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we keep the ball rolling. We go from Scotland and then down to the south if we are all complete and ready to go. Good evening, Chineke. Please take turns to unmute and introduce, or rather reintroduce yourself to our listeners and great Biafrans.
Good evening, great Biafrans all over the world. My names are Ikenna Njoko. I am from Ikeduru in Owerri province. By the grace of Chukwu Okike Abiama, I am the Scotland Regional Coordinator. I am very, very happy and excited to be here this evening. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Wachineke Ndewo. You're most welcome. Thank you.
Good evening, Chineke all over the world, and good evening, the lovers of Biafra and lovers of IPOB all over the world, and good evening, our listeners. My name is Azubi K. Alphonsus. I am the IPOB Scotland Deputy Regional Coordinator, and I am from Ebonyi State, southeast part of Biafra land. I am happy to be here this evening, and thank you all, the anchors in the studio, for inviting me, and thank you our listeners for coming around to listen to what we have to share with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming despite the pleasant emergency in your household. And with your permission, I would love to say a massive congratulations to you and your wife, and also a massive thanksgiving to Chukwuka Abiyama for the blessings he has added to your household and to all of us. We pray that the new arrival that the Chukwuka Abiyama has blessed your family with will be a blessing to all of us, to all Biafrans, and to Biafra land. I do hope that mother and child are doing very well, and probably just about 24 hours of the arrival. So I salute your courage. That's what we are known for. That even with that situation and all the running around you're doing, you still find time to be on this program. Congratulations, Mwachineke. We celebrate with you. We thank you, and with your family. All our best wishes and regards to your wife, your lovely wife, and the new arrival, the new bouncing baby, and also the rest of your family and household. Mwachineke.
You are most welcome, Chief. Thank you for your kind words and best wishes. I will extend that to my family in general. And for your information, we are all fine. We just left the hospital earlier in the day, and we are at home right now, sound and very well. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our third panelist for tonight, the person of IPOB Worldwide Special Rep and IPOB UK Head of Legal and Compliance Team, Laura Monday, has not joined us yet. We do hope that she will join us at some point. I don't know what is technicalities. I've given her a reminder. But I do hope that she is safe and sound. We wish her all the best. And if she's able to join us, that'll be more than wonderful. But in the meantime, Maazi Iken and Maazi Azubike, we'll get the ball rolling about Onyendu's bear restoration. What does bear restoration entail? Maazi Iken.
Thank you very much. And good evening once again, great Biafrans. I think in simple terms, when you say bail restoration, it presupposes that the person had earlier on been granted bail. So when you are restoring the person's bail, it means that the bail which the person had been granted previously was revoked. Then when the bail is being restored, it means that the conditions under which the person was told to go home or not to be under the police custody or court custody is being reinstated. So, in fact, in other words, the person is usually given the conditions under which the previous bail was granted. That's in simple terms what a bail restoration means. Thank you.
Thank you for breaking it down into a layman's understanding. Master, do you have anything to add to that? And also, if you want to explain the ID process of bail restoration.
Thank you for inviting me to add to the comment that was made by the lead panelist. Just as you rightly pointed out, when you're asking for a restoration of bail, what it simply means is that you are trying to reinstate, you are trying to reactivate, you are trying to put life into what has been existing, but at some point in time became comatose. So now you are trying to give life back to that. And when you are doing that, when you are trying to restore a bail that was previously granted, the judge in doing so is not expected to alter the condition of the bail. It has to be the way it was. And if any alteration is to be made at all, that alteration will be to reduce the condition that was earlier stated in the order of the court. For instance, if you had earlier said bring 3 shorties, maybe the courts will say, okay, I hereby discharge one of the 3 shorties which you already brought in before and was in the record of the court. You cannot say, because I'm restoring your bail, go and bring additional shorty to make them 4. So it has to be on the same pedestal, on the same condition it was ab initio, except if in the unlikely circumstance there is a condition, that there's a change of circumstance that has emerged, and the courts take cognizance into that of that change of circumstances and decides to introduce a new condition. But if there's no change of circumstance, if all things being equal, the same way it was at the point of granting the bail, you just have to reinstate the bail, and the suspect or the accused in this time around, or the defendant as the court usually call it, will just go home under the same terms that he or she was. And the process of when it comes to the process of restoring bail, it has to be in the open courts, and it still have to be in writing, just the same way it was. So it's not an ex parte application that has to be made in chamber, except if the original bail was done by ex parte. But once the original bail was granted on notice in the open court, then when the court reconvenes, the court has to restore that bail in the open court and put it in writing and declare, that is the order of the court in the ruling, that you can now go home and keep coming to attend your trial from home. So it's not as if you are going to file a new application. You just have to draw the court attention to the fact that I want my client's bail reinstated. And just to add this last point, we usually do this in practice if the police or DSS or any law enforcement agency arrests someone, for instance, and a lawyer or the members of the family approach that institution to request for his or her bail. We call that an administrative bail, a bail that is granted by either the police or any law enforcement agency, an administrative bail. So it's not a bail that is granted by the court. And you know the police normally do that in Nigeria or anywhere in the world. So if I request for my client or my relative to be granted bail by the police, and the police oblige me that request and grant that person's bail, the moment that person is arraigned in court, it is as if the police hand is off. The court have now taken over. So his lawyer has to be proactive enough to tell the court, please, my client was previously enjoying administrative bail granted by the police, and today he is his arraignment, and he came from his home to appear in this court. He did not violate that administrative bail he was enjoying. Please allow him to continue enjoying that administrative bail on the terms and conditions of that previous bail. If the court is happy with that, they will just put a seal to that administrative bail, and he will continue to enjoy it. But sometimes the court may refuse and may ask you to bring a formal application before the court. And if the lawyer fails to ask for the reinstatement of that bail, or for the continuous enjoyment of that bail, he may have shot himself on the foot, because there is nothing on the record of the court that his client is on bail, except at the record of the law enforcement agency that is not even a court. I don't know if that has cleared that your second leg of the question.
Thank you, Wachineke has well, and I must thank you for the details. I do hope that our listeners are taking note and they are understanding it. If you have any questions when the lines are open, you can put them across. Our sound legal minds here in the studio will be more than able and capable to answer your questions and make further explanation. Just as Maazi Ikenna said at his intro, that for a bail to be restored, or an application for restoration of a bail to be held in the first place, means that there was already bail in existence. And in the case of Onyendu, Maazi Nnamdi Kanu, just for those who knew the travail, the trial, and the tribulation we are all passing through with Onyendu, he was granted bail in 2017, which he was enjoying for a few months down the line, when the Kuru wicked Janjaweed Zoo government of Fulani Kabah in Asorok decided to carry out a heinous operation, Python Dance 2, at the country home of Onyendu. The aim was just one goal: to inflict hideous assassination of Onyendu. On the 14th of September 2017, Onyendu escaped just by the whiskers. It's a story for another day, how he actually escaped. But in their frustration and brutality, they mowed down more than, we say officially 28 people. It's way more than that number. They are gruesomely murdered in a compound and its surroundings. And also Onyendu's pet dog, Jack, was killed in that process. So Maazi Nnamdi Kanu had no other option than to run for his life. He took a flight of safety and found himself in Holy Land. The Zoo government, in their frustration, decided to revoke his bail in his absence, and when they eventually criminally kidnapped him in Kenya and extraordinarily, illegally renditioned him to the zoo in June 2021, instead of restoring his bail, they decided to not just revoke it, but to provoke a cessation of the bail. And here we are, nearly 4 years now, still no justice. Maazi Ikenna, I return to you. Talk us through the process of bail restoration, or even bail generally, here in the UK or in the Western world. Is it the same as in the zoo we call Nigeria and Africa?
Thank you very much. Nigeria is a common law country, and that means that it was a former colony of Great Britain, meaning that most of the laws that Nigeria adopts and the processes, these procedures, have great similarity with the processes that England uses. So, in as much as you cannot say that they are exactly identical, but they have great similarities. So, generally, the process of granting bail in the UK, specifically in England, is this. But first and foremost, I think our listeners should be made to understand that once you talk about bail, that means that the person has been arrested. Without somebody getting arrested, you cannot talk about bail. That is a fact that everybody should know about. Then, just as my learned brother has pointed out, there are two types of bail: police bail, as he has said, and then court bail. Normally, when in the UK, in England, when you are a person, an accused, is charged to court, the police cannot grant the person bail again. It's normally a judicial process. It's normally the court that will grant the person bail. But when a bail is granted to an accused person, the court usually sets some conditions that are attached to that bail. The major conditions that the court normally likes to attach to a bail are: number one, the person must have a fixed address, must have a place that the court will say, if we are looking for this person, we are going to go to this place and find him or her. That is very, very important. The court, in considering granting a bail as well, will have to pay attention to whether the person being granted bail potentially is at risk of committing that offense again or any other offense. The court will have to look at this. If that person is likely to commit an offense, it's unlikely that the court will grant the person bail. The identity of the person as well, depending on the kind of offense that the person commits, the court might want to make sure that the geographical location that the person resides in is restricted, and a connection to it is to make sure that the ID of the person is restricted. That means that if the court suspects that there is a likelihood that the person might abscond, but at the same time there are no factors to justify continual detention of the person, then the court might grant the person the bail, but remove the person's passport in order to prevent the person from using it to abscond. But in the UK, there is an additional restraint that the courts can impose, which I don't think is available in the zoo at the moment, but I stand to be corrected. The UK does what we call tagging. So if an accused is granted bail, the accused might be restricted. The accused might be restricted to England, and the specific borders will be imputed into the tagging, meaning that any movement that the accused makes, the system will know it. Once the accused moves outside the geographical area that the tagging allows him to, that will constitute a breach of bail conditions. Another thing that is normally a condition that the UK imposes, which I think that Zoo Nigeria also impose, is contact of certain people. Depending on the kind of crime somebody commits, the court might prohibit or restrict the accused person from contacting certain people. The aim is usually, number one, to prevent the commission of offense. If it is husband and wife, for instance, the court might prevent the husband from contacting the wife because they might see each other and the factors might arise that will aggravate the situation and another crime will be committed. Or the person might try to interfere with the justice process or influence the witness. So those specific people that the court suspects are important in the court system, in the hearing, in the case that the accused will be made to answer, the court will prohibit or restrict that accused person from making any kind of contact with those people. The court might also impose curfew on the person. The court might also say, we know that you are residing at so and so address, but due to the kind of crime that you committed or that you are charged with, we are imposing curfew on you. What this thing means is that the court might say, between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., we want you to be located at your home address, the address you have given to the court. Normally, while making this imposition, the court puts into consideration the person's lifestyle. If it is someone that, in the UK for instance, in England specifically, if it is somebody that does a night shift, it makes no sense for you to make an imposition of curfew that the person must stay in his house 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. because you will definitely by that imposition be depriving the person of his means of livelihood. So the court will put into consideration the person's lifestyle before they make this curfew condition. So I think on the face of it, these are some of the processes that the UK adopts when the issue of bail is considered and the conditions of bail as well. This means that if the accused person breaches these conditions, the person is going straight to detention. But there is something that the UK does that I don't think is applicable to Nigeria, or if it's applicable, that I don't think that works in Nigeria, just like most of the things don't work in Zoo Nigeria. In the UK, if an accused person breaches their bail condition, the courts consider it a very, very serious issue. What it means is that if the police say, for instance, Mr. Smith, you have breached your bail conditions because you are told not to visit number A12, but you visited A12. The police, according to the UK laws, the Bail Act, must bring the person to court and charge the person within 24 hours of the person's arrest. What it means is that if the person breaches his bail condition and the police goes to the person's house by 11 a.m. and arrests the person, it is always documented, and the system knows that the person has been arrested by 11 a.m. on, for instance, Monday morning. Now, the police must have to prepare every available paperwork that it is to do in order to make sure that the accused person or the person that has breached the bail conditions is arraigned in court before that, not later, in fact, than 11 a.m. the next day. I have personally called the police to let people leave, to let people out of custody because of the fact that they were arrested and they were not brought to court within 24 hours. So, I am unable to confirm if such a process is available in the zoo, because the other laws that are obvious to be respected are not even respected. So it will be difficult for the police to even obey such a law. But we are connecting this thing to our Onyendu. It is clear that the action of the Nigerian state, the security services, the police, the DSS, or whoever they may be, against Onyendu was grossly unfair. Meaning that Onyendu, from even the judgment of the Supreme Court, did not breach his bail conditions. So, if he did not breach his bail conditions, what is Onyendu still doing in detention in DSS dungeon? It is those who arrested Onyendu that in a properly working society that should be in detention, because they are those who are going against the law of the land. They are those who are arresting someone who has not only not been found guilty of any crime, but has not breached the conditions of bail that was given to him, as their own court said. So when you put into consideration the fact that the conditions of the bail has not been breached and the Onyendu is still in detention, that goes to show you the extent of impunity, the extent of injustice that is going on in the zoo. No wonder Nigeria is indeed called a zoo. I think I should pause here at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Wachineke. That is very, very detailed. 101, I will call it Bell 101. I'm sure listeners are taking note in terms of the similarities and differences between Bell process in the UK and or Western world and the zoo called Nigeria and other dungeons in Africa. I think one thing that is very clear, I'm not a legal practitioner, is that whether, especially the administrative bail, the police bail, is free here in the UK, in the Western world, whereas it is not free in the zoo. People are financially exploited and extorted of their meager resources just to grant them bail. Mazazubike, you may point if there are other similarities and differences that have not been, simple points, like I said, about being free, the administrative bail or police bail. Then you can explain more about the court bail, which is exactly what Onyendu was enjoying. Onyendu wasn't a police bail, it was a court bail, which the court itself has admitted, Supreme Court. I don't know how supreme the zoo upper court is. In an ideal world, if it's here in the UK and the American, Supreme Court ruling or pronouncement is a judgment that must be carried out to the letter. That same bail that they acknowledge in a judgment that was wrongfully revoked has still not been restored or reinstated by a lower court. And there you go, they are playing ostriches with it and continue to hold Onyendu illegally. So, Mazazubike, I wanted to just point out if there are other simplistic differences. Let's leave the similarities now, because there isn't much, to be honest. Now you can cover those, but differences. Like, for example, let our listeners understand when it comes to guarantors, sureties. Are there any differences here in the UK or not? I'm aware that some administrative bail here in the UK, sometimes you don't need a guarantor. You are granted the bail or your personal recognition. As Madikena said, you have fixed address, they know your place of work and stuff like that. You're granted bail, no money involved and nothing. And I'm also aware that in some cases people have been granted bail without actually signing any major document. No guarantors are said is required. So are there still more that we need to touch? And then while you're doing that, why would a bail be revoked in the first place? In the process, you might explain to us how the revocation of the bail actually works. Because in the zoo, these things are never clear. It's just arbitrary. People do whatever they like. Politicians behave, as they choose. And the judges are worse than even the politicians in some cases. Now, as the please come in.
All right, thank you for your question and thank you, our listeners. Well, I must first and foremost state very clearly, this has been said repeatedly by many people and it is a truth, undiluted truth in the public domain, is that Onyendu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, whether you hate him or you love him, whether you're a member of IPOB or non-member, whether you love IPOB or not, whether you're a man or you're a woman, the truth beyond peradventure is that Onyendu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is illegally held in Nigeria. forget about whatsoever shenanigans or court order. They might use court orders to justify it. They might use a Supreme Court judgment that says, go and face 7 counts. That out of the 15 counts which you were charged ab initio, we hereby remove 8 and ask you to go and face 7 counts, which includes count 1, count 2, count 3, count 4, count 5, then count 13 and 15. And this count basically revolves around terrorism, or doing an act in furtherance of terrorism, which is a capital offense in Nigeria. But Onyendu Nnamdi Kanu, as he is presently, is not triable. His case is clearly not triable, because the foundation upon which his case would have been triable has been violated. He was illegally, extraordinarily kidnapped under international law and brought back to Nigeria. That foundation is very clear and is faulty, and anything you are building on that is illegal kidnap is bound to collapse. So having said that, coming for the process of revocation of bail, a bail that has been granted by the court or by the police or any other law enforcement agency can be revoked at any time when the person who is enjoying that bail violates the terms and conditions of the bail. My learned senior Ikenna have been able to give us clearly, as if we were in a classroom, to educate us properly of the processes and some of the what the court considers. So if you violate any of those things, they ask you not to do this and you do it, it's a violation. But if you bring that to the similarity or the differences in it, how that violation is enforced in Nigeria and UK, yes, England and Wales, the law of England and Wales and that of Nigeria has a lot of similarity, but the enforcement is poor in Nigeria. And again, Nigeria is a lawless state. There is no controversy about that. The law is only active when you are poor and when you are nobody in the society. Once you are a man of means and you are connected, or you have your whereabouts in the system, you can manipulate the law, you can turn the law, stand it on its head, and you will go scot-free, and you will never ever be held accountable for that. But once you are nobody, somebody they considered nobody, or once you are a person targeted in the system, the government will stop at nothing to ensure that the law it becomes effective on you. And because IPOB as an organization, including its members anywhere in the world, and those who have associated themselves with IPOB, whether you are within the rank and file, as long as you profess to be a member of the indigenous people of Biafra and you are for the cause of IPOB, you are a target in Nigeria, and the law will be very effective on you. And that is what the system have subjected Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to. They defile all known law. They defile all precedents. In fact, those of us who studied law in Nigeria and practiced law in Nigeria appears to be confused now because of the way the judges are going about interpreting Nigerian law. The law is no more certain. We can no longer rely on past precedents to predict what can happen. So this has never, though Nigeria have always been a lawless state, but is more precarious at this moment, especially when issue of IPOB members, whether you are a leader in IPOB or an ordinary member, is involved. So now, Like I said, when you breach the condition of your bail can be revoked. And again, just as Mazin Ikenna pointed out, once a bail has been breached, a bail condition has been breached in the UK, for instance, particularly in England, the police will go all out to arrest that individual, because they have a central database, and it is easy for a police officer in Scotland that sees somebody who breached a bail condition in England, for instance, and the person breached the bail condition and run to Scotland. A police in Scotland can see that person and arrest him, and of course charge the person immediately. If I follow the processes for the relevant police department to charge that person. But you can breach a bail condition in Lagos and run to Maiduguri, and in fact you will be shaking hands with police officers on the way and be giving them the money they are demanding from you. They will not know that you have breached any bail condition in Lagos. And again, when bail condition is breached in Nigeria, for instance, if a police officer arrests that individual, they will not charge that person independently in most cases. They will rather wait until the next date of the hearing of that case which you have breached the bail, and they will just present you to the court, and the prosecution will now request for your bail to be revoked, that you have breached your condition. Therefore, you have to go back to the prison and be awaiting your trial and be coming from prison for your trial. So you may not be charged independently on a separate charge on account of that breach of bail. Rather, what it will deprive you is your liberty. They will take you back into custody, and you will be coming on the day of your trial. You will be coming in Black Maria. You will no longer be walking from your home to the court. But here, you see the difference. They will charge you independently of when next, or regardless of whenever the case is coming up again. And you may be facing a different count charge, and you can be convicted for a breach of bail condition, even if you are not convicted for the main offense. In other words, one that is charged for crime of theft may be exonerated for crime of theft. But if you were granted bail on account of that charge of theft, and you breach that bail condition, you can be charged for that breach and convicted for that, even though you are set free for that crime of theft. That is for here. But that is not usually the case in Nigeria, except when they want to wield the whole law against you because you are a person that they really want to destroy, as in the case of Mazin Nnamdi Kanu. Why they are turning the laws upside down, the case of Mazin Nnamdi Kanu, is that the system want to do whatsoever they can to destroy Mazin Nnamdi Kanu and to render IPOB ineffective. But of course, the IPOB as an organization has crossed the Rubicon. The mere fact that they are holding Nnamdi Kanu can never stop the agitation of IPOBs, and they have come to realize that, but they have failed out of their ego and pomposity. They have failed to acknowledge the fact that the mere fact of holding Mazin Nnamdi Kanu cannot destroy IPOB, even if in the unlikely event, I'm not saying this happen, but if for any reason the Nigerian state succeeds by their act of lawlessness to break Onyendu Nnamdi Kanu to dance to their tune, it is unfortunate for them that doing that alone cannot stop IPOB as an organization, because IPOB have crossed that Rubicon, the point of no return, in our quest to realize Biafra in the most peaceful means. We are not violent organization. We are not an organization that is out to destroy anybody. All we are asking is give us a peaceful atmosphere to have a referendum of the people to decide their fate, whether they want to be in Nigeria state or to be in an independent Biafra. Let the people speak. Why is it easy for you to organize election for members of the House of Rep, the Assembly, the governor, the president, and all that? You allow the people to vote by whatever means, whatever shenanigan voting system you employ. You allow them to do it. But when it comes to IPOB agitation, asking for a peaceful referendum for the people to have a level playground to decide whether they want to remain in Nigeria or to be you say no. So that is the crux of the matter. So now, when you revoke a bail, you come to the court, you say that this XYZ has breached the bail condition. You know that, and again, if the accused run away, for instance, and has gone to a place where the law enforcement agency are unable to rearrest him, what the prosecution does is they will inform the court on the day of the trial. My lord, the accused is nowhere to be found. He was granted bail and he went home enjoying that bail, but he has refused to appear in court to face his trial. So, may I request the court to revoke his bail and issue a bench warrant. What we call a bench warrant in Nigeria legal system is usually made after a bail condition has been revoked, for instance. Then the court will go ahead to issue a bench warrant by saying anywhere, by directing all law enforcement agencies that anywhere you see XYZ, please arrest him. That is what that bench warrant stands. And any sister law enforcement agency that sees that person will just simply arrest him and hand him over to the police, who will then ferry him from there to the court or to the prison custody. So that's how that bench warrant comes. But I want to bring this home to the case of Onyendu, which is our major focal point in this radio program. Onyendu, as has been said by my learned senior here, and every other is a truth within the public domain. And the Supreme Court, not a small court, the Supreme Court, the court, after that court, you have nowhere else to appeal to except to God. So the Supreme Court said that Onyendu did not jump bail. That what he did on 14th September 2027 was what every reasonable man, any reasonable man that is not deaf and dumb, that is not an idiot, that is not an imbecile, any reasonable man will do what he has just done. We are human and we respond to stimuli. It's only a tree that we hear that I'm about to be cut down and the tree will stand. And to cap it all, over 28 individuals were killed at the spot. Those that sustained injury and later died as a result of that injury, or are causing permanent disability as a result of that injury, were not accounted for. They only picked the dead bodies of 28 individuals, including the death of Onyendu. In other words, if Onyendu had waited a little seconds, he would have fell for the bullet. So tell me who reasonable man in his standing we hear that his house is on fire and he's pursuing rights. Nobody can do that, including those who are holding him illegally. So it is very clear beyond peradventure that he ran away for his safety, because if he was there, he would have been a dead man now. And that was the aim of those who wanted to, who invaded his home on that day. A man is enjoying his bail. He was granted bail in April 2017. And there was no record from the moment that bail was perfected, the bail condition was perfected. There was no record that he breached the condition of the bail. He was going to trial from his home until 14th September 2017, when they launched military operation. It's not a police operation, it's a military operation. So those who understand English knows what military operation means. So they have been commissioned to kill and to maim. If he had stand a minute, they would have killed him. And he managed to run away by the whiskers. So it's very clear on that. So I do not know why the court or why the Supreme Court failed. The Supreme Court failed woefully. But let us get it clear. The judgment of the Supreme Court on Onyendu was not or is not totally useless. There are a lot of benefits to take from that judgment. But they failed woefully to make that all-important order. Two orders. One is that his case was not triable. They're supposed to dismiss that appeal completely. But they failed to dismiss that appeal. And the second thing is reinstate that bail. Because the people on the street has been wondering, does it mean that Supreme Court does not have power to grant bail? And I am telling you as a lawyer that the Supreme Court has power. They have right. In fact, if your bail is refused by the trial judge, you can appeal it. You can present your bail application as many times as possible when there is a change of circumstance. And if that trial court keep refusing it, you have right to approach the Court of Appeal. And if the Court of Appeal refuses it, you can appeal to the Supreme Court just to get your liberty. Why will you do that? Because it is a constitutional issue. Section 35 of the Constitution, Section 35 sub 1, grants the right to personal liberty. When I take you into custody now, I have deprived you your personal liberty. And that Constitution went further to say that you can only deprive personal liberty in accordance with the provision of the Constitution. If you take a step further to the same section 35 sub 4, you will see that it provides how somebody that is arrested by a law enforcement agency has to be taken to court. For instance, Mazi Kenna here mentioned that in the course of his work, he discovered that he, as a prosecutor, that ordinarily he would have been rejoicing that after all the person I want to deal with has been arrested. But he knows that it's against the right of that person he is prosecuting. He had to call the police and tell them that, look, release this individual because you did not charge him to court within the reasonable time that the law prescribed. So if you read section 35 sub 4 of the almighty Constitution of Nigeria, because that is the highest law that Nigeria has, but they have been violating the law, desecrating the law, because Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is involved. And I keep asking, if you destroy all the Nigerian laws that is in existence because of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, remember, today it is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and tomorrow it could be you. And that law you destroy today, those bad precedents you set today, will then be applied on you. There are people who are here in the UK holding British passport or maybe on another leave whatsoever, and they are rejoicing. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has been arrested in Kenya. If Nigeria can arrest Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in Kenya, the same way they can come here and kidnap you. They can break all the protocols and kidnap you, and the same thing you are rejoicing over. Nobody will be there to condemn it. Have they done it before? They did it before in the UK, although they paid some diplomatic consequences in it, but then they did it. They did it.
All right, thank you, Mazi. Thank you very, very much.
That is just it.
Yes, thank you, Machineke. It's very clear the zoo is prepared to destroy every legal framework, throw it to the bins, insofar as it concerns a Biafran, an Igbo person. And we are living witnesses to this. Already, it is a lawless contraption. So the laws they have are just formalities. As you said, copy and paste. They just copy what Britain has written. Sometimes they even copy copy the wrong things and add to it. Nobody is actually applying it. It's inapplicable because they are lawless by nature and by nurture. So that's what we are facing. What is it now? Let me tweak the question because we already established there. When and how would their conditions be varied and or vacated? We may also want to explain the process of revoking Onyendu's bail in 2017 that we talked about. Was there any legal ambit or cloud or umbrella that the zoo could have hidden under in doing that illegality?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, it is possible to vary a bail, to vary bail conditions, and there are reasons. When the circumstance of a person who has been granted bail changes, the person has to make an application to the court for his or her bail to be varied. What it means is that the conditions will be changed. Let us say, for instance, that somebody who is married and the wife lives in a different address was given as a condition of bail geographical restraints, and it happens that an emergency arises, it might be childbirth, and the wife gives birth. The court can vary the person's bail on application for the person to be able to visit the wife and expand the geographical location within which the person can visit. The person's bail can also be varied if it conflicts a fundamental right, which might mean that there is no reason for such a condition to be imposed in the first place. If you put a bail condition on a person that will entail that the person will be unable to go to work, definitely that will be varied. But it is incumbent on the person to make an application for the bail to be varied. The court might on its own look at it and it looks unreasonable, and then they will decide to, vary the bail. But normally, such considerations are made at the point when those bail conditions are being imposed. However, after that, when is normally when the person's condition changes, and how is whenever the person makes an application to the court for the bail to be varied. Now, in terms of revocation of bail, the person needs to, when you are varying bail, basically that bail is not being revoked, but the conditions of that bail is being changed. But when you are revoking a bail, that means the person's bail is, if I should use a layman's word, is being cancelled. The freedom that was given to the person, albeit with conditions, is being taken away. So just as my learned brother said here, most of the time, or some of the time, it might be for the court to wait until, or the police to wait until the person presents himself at the next court hearing. In the UK principally, they are usually quick in that regard. They will, once the system detects that, or the police knows by information that you have breached the bail condition, they will apply to the court immediately for your bail to be revoked. But the person whose bail revocation is being considered must be given notice. Number one, the person must know that on this day, his or her appearance is needed in court for the purpose of considering the revocation of his or her bail. Secondly, the person must be given the right to defend him or herself. Now, there is this very important point that must be made. For the fact that there is an application to revoke a bail before the court does not mean that that bail must be revoked.
Oh, I think we lost Maziken momentarily there. Okay, we will take a short break. Hopefully he will rejoin us. I did say at the intro of today's program that we are happy here in the UK because our people who are very talented keep on producing. So while we wait for Mazikena to rejoin us, we'll take a short break and take this the latest musical release from our own Mazi JJ Man.
America wonders, man or woman, no. Nigerians don't know. Oh yeah, grab it, match it, oh yeah, run it. Inside Niger, anyway now, Nigeria, Nigeria,
That's Mazi JJ Man's latest release, Nigeria Bagona Koko. The zoo has entered voicemail. Mazi Azubike, please, if you are mute and carry on while we wait for Mazi Kenya to rejoin us. I do hope that there's no much problem with his system. He was talking about the revoking or rather barring and vacating bail. Mazi, is vacating bail same as revoking bail? Just for us to learn here in the classroom tonight. And then I want you also to have a look at what we referenced to before regarding Onyendu's bail. Are there natural circumstances or situations where a bail becomes revoked by a force majeure? You know, so let's look at it because that's what happened on September 14, 2017. So under the law, in the constitution or any other legal framework, are there provisions for such situations or circumstances?
Okay, thank you, Chief. I just want to pick it up from where Mazi Kenna stopped. There's a last point he was just trying to make before he went offline. I think the last thing he said was that the mere application for revocation of the bail to the court does not mean that that bail will be automatically revoked. So in other words, the prosecution are the ones that usually apply for the bail of a defendant or an accused person to be revoked, where they believe that the accused or the defendant has breached the condition of the bail. And I'm saying that the mere fact that the prosecution makes that application, whether in writing or orally to the judge, does not mean that the judge will just believe that hook, line, and sinker and revoke the bail. The accused person in such circumstance, if he is in court, must be given opportunity to explain himself or the condition under which that bail was, under which he found himself to do something that appears to be that he has breached the condition of the bail. For instance, if somebody was given a condition to stay within a particular geographic area, let's say Omahia, the court give you a bail condition and say you must do your business around Omahia alone until this case is dealt with. And if you must leave Omahia, you must tell us the reason you must leave Omahia, and we will consider it and see whether we will vary that condition and allow you to go beyond Omahia. If somebody is kidnapped or forcefully drove away from Omahia and he finds himself in Enugu, and the police arrest him and say you have breached your bail condition because they say you must stay in Omahia and you are in Enugu, therefore we must charge you. So it is when the police then apply to the court to revoke the bail, the person will have his day in court to explain and say, court, look, I didn't just find myself in Enugu voluntarily, but a circumstance beyond me as a human being came up. I slept in my room and the next day I found myself in Enugu, and I still cannot explain how I got to Enugu. So in such situation, the court will say, look, this man did not offend or breach this court order with his full mind. Something beyond him happened. And in such situation, that application for revocation of the bail can be refused. So that is the simplest analogy I can use to demonstrate that. Now, when it now comes to issue of force majeure, what is force majeure? In the layman language, we call it an act of God. Act of God is something that is beyond us as a human. For instance, we sleep natural. I want to use natural disaster, for instance, as an act of God. You are given a contract to build a particular house, and you are doing your work diligently, and one day you closed off from the site and got home, only for you to wake up in the morning to return to the site, and there was a flood that came and took away the whole property you have been building. That is an act of God. Will you hold the contractor that he has breached his contract? Is it the floods that swept away the house? There's something we call doctrine of frustration in a contract. When doctrine of frustration arises, it can come from any of the party to the contract. We are doing a contract, and our contract is for you to help me sell off the goods in my warehouse. And I went home looking for customer to come and buy the goods in my warehouse. And before I could get some people to come and buy the goods, I get to the warehouse and the warehouse is empty. And it happens to be that it was the man who engaged me has moved the goods or has even sold it off without letting me know. The contract has been frustrated. So Onyendu in this situation was enjoying his bail. No record that he breached any of the condition of the bail. He was going about doing his business, attending the courts regularly. And that military operation Python dance was launched. We cannot call that force majeure because it was not an act of God. This is a well-planned military plan it doesn't happen by an act of God. It doesn't happen by force majeure. It was the military that ordered, mobilized men and machineries to invade that place. It didn't take 1 minute to plan. It took days. They draw plan, give and mobilize all the machineries they need, logistics to be able to execute that. So that does not fall within force majeure, but a force majeure can happen in a bell, or something can frustrate a bell. Or, for instance, if you charge a person to court and the person the accused person is attending the court, obeying all the condition of the bell, and the Attorney General, for instance, or the prosecuting authority, for instance, withdraws that charge, the act of withdrawal of that charge has swept all that case away, including the bail condition. Once the charge is withdrawn, the accused person will have nothing again holding him from living his normal life. Because remember, his normal life was curtailed because of a criminal charge dangling on his or her head. And now the criminal charge has been removed. There is nothing again curtailing his or her freedom. So in such situation, you can say, even though it doesn't really mean an act of God or a force majeure, you can say that the act of withdrawing that case can look like a force majeure, even though it's not a force majeure, because what we consider force majeure in the eye of the law is a situation beyond human control, an act of God which no man can dictate how it happen and when it will happen. That is force majeure. It's a French word, but I'm now explaining it in English in ordinary meaning, what it means. So once you can establish that what has happened, that the human being has a hand in it, and that the human being could have stopped it, or that they did something to make it happen, that is no longer force majeure. Rather, you can say that such situation has that the thing has been overtaken by an event. There's a change of circumstances that emerged in the middle of the game, and that change of circumstances has affected the whole thing. So, in Onyendu's case, or if the defendant, for instance, that was granted bail dies, if a defendant that is enjoying his bail dies, what are you trying again? Criminal responsibility is not transferable. You cannot transfer criminal responsibility that was done by a mother and transfer it to the son, or transfer it to the father. Every man is on his own when it comes to criminal charge or criminal prosecution. Even though in Nigeria, being a lawless state, you will always often hear that the police came home to arrest a man or to arrest his son, and they did not see him. They carried his wife and carried his children and said, let us go and hold this one. When he come home and realize that his family is no more at home, he will come to the station to come and look for us, and then we will arrest him. That is absolutely illegal, because criminal responsibility is not, and it cannot be inherited by anybody. So if you charge a man to court, and the court graciously grant the person bail, and while he's at home enjoying his bail, the person passes on. In fact, that alone has collapsed the case. There is nobody again to continue enjoying bail on behalf of a dead man. The case is as good as dead. Maybe you can call that a force majeure. But maybe you can help me if I am not answering the question in the context of the force majeure you used here. Maybe you can help to redirect me. But I just want to say that in the case of
you're well in order. Thank you.
So what I just want to say in the case of Onyendu Nnamdi Kanu, as it pertains to that bail that he was granted in April 2027, and he perfected it some months later and continued enjoying that bell up to September, when that military operation was launched to kill him. There was no force majeure in between. He ran away because he is a human that responds to stimuli. Every human being can do that, except if you no longer have leg to run away. And it will be established that, look, why I did not run is not because I want to stay. It's because I am disabled and I'm unable to run and no one to help me to run. But in his own case, he has the means to run for his life, and he did. That is what every natural human being in his circumstances would have done. If you do otherwise, you are an idiot. You are not a human.
All right, Mazi, thank you so much for that elaborate explanation. Welcome back, Mazi Kenna. Good to have you back. We were explaining the situation, but Mazi Azubike has really come in, and I think we move on from there. Just before I open the line so that our listeners may come in with one or two questions of theirs, let me ask you, Mazi Kenna, the Supreme Court pronouncement that we were talking about, or rather acknowledgement of Onyendu's revocation being wrong, illegal, was that a judgment under the law? Because that's one thing that is not very clear. And also, if you may, by the same stroke, explain to us any differences between a ruling, a judgment, or an order of the court.
Okay, thank you very much, and my apologies for the interruption. The acknowledgement that it was illegal to revoke Onyendu's bail. You know that what normally happens in Nigeria is that, just as my learned colleague pointed out, that the Supreme Court made a fundamental error in not, a failure in not setting Onyendu free or reinstating his bail, and in holding that he was not to be tried, that the case was not triable. For the mere fact that the Supreme Court held that the revocation of his bail was illegal should ordinarily have resulted to the Supreme Court reinstating his bail. So it just didn't flow that they will go to the extent of making such a pronouncement or acknowledging such a fact or such a failure on the part of the state, but at the same time not reinstating his bail. That ordinarily should have been a persuasive factor for lower courts, for then Justice Binta Nyako to have used to grant him or to reinstate his bail. That acknowledgement is a very, very forceful authority for the court to have used. Very persuasive. Even though in that judgment they didn't reinstate it. They could have done that. They didn't do that. But that was a very, very persuasive factor for the court to have used. The lower courts, the Federal High Court, to have used. Then coming to the issue of ruling, judgment, and order. I know that some people might sometimes use ruling and judgment interchangeably, but they are not. A perfect example that I can give is that an accused is taken to court, and in that court the accused is, tried for terrorism. Accused is being tried for terrorism. Now, one of the evidence that the state gives is that they intercepted the telephone communications between the accused and a terrorist organization. Now, if the law that allows the security services to survey the accused and intercept his communications provides that there should be a warrant before such an interception can be made, then let us say, for instance, that the accused challenges that evidence that there was no warrant for the security services to use to have intercepted his telephone communications, and he objects to the evidence that the state is giving, the prosecution is giving in court, then the court, the judge can make a pronouncement called a ruling on that specific point, whether that evidence that the state is bringing in for it to admit is admissible or not. So the decision of the court regarding that particular evidence that the accused is challenging, that the state did not have a warrant to intercept his communications, that decision is called a ruling by the court. Assuming that after the whole case goes through the court, evidence is given, the accused is called in evidence whether he wants to testify or not. At the end of the day, the court says, okay, the accused is not found guilty, or the accused is found guilty. Then that one is a judgment, because what it means is that it is the whole finding of both the facts and the legal arguments that is put before the court, and not on a specific issue. So that one is what we call a judgment in law. But when you come to a court order, that is normally given by the court for a specific something to be done. The court might give an order that the police might, let me say for instance, in the example I gave about the accused communication being intercepted, the court can give an order that the state must produce the warrant they used to intercept the accused telephone services or telephone communications. So in that circumstance, that is what an order means: a specific instruction, a specific direction by the court for a specific act to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Machineke. Very, very eloquently stated, very intelligently put. I'm sure people can understand this now and relate it, so that when you're talking about ruling, judgment, or orders, you know exactly which one is applicable. Maybe
let me just add, Chief.
Yeah. When you come in, Mazi, to add, also explain to us what is the real bail or pre-charge bail.
Okay. So, well, I just want to add to what Mazi Kenna just said, and I want to give all he said are in order, and that is the law, and that is the simple explanation. But I just want to bring another dimension to this to make it clearer. For instance, if an accused person is charged to court, and while that case is pending, the accused person decides to make an application for bail whether orally or in writing. When it comes to higher courts, it is usually in writing in most cases, according to the procedural rule. But there's no law that says you cannot just make it orally. And the courts may grant it if they are moved to do so orally. So when you make an application for bail, that application, you may be hearing the word motion and you may think you are studying physics. We are not in physics class. Lawyers call application for bail motion. Even ordinary application in court, most time we call it motion. So when you hear the word motion, just know it's just an application you are making to the court in writing to request for a particular thing. And the reason for you making this application, for instance, is that you are asking the court to grant your client bail so that he will be coming from home to attend his trial. If the judge listens to you, who is making the application, and listen to the opposing lawyer that is opposing this application, and at the end of the day decides to make a decision on that application, we call it ruling. If you decide to rule on that application, it is called ruling, because it does not touch the subject matter that brought you people to court. Remember, what may have brought you people to court may be the person was charged to terrorism, as in the case of Onyendu Nnamdi. You are not saying court remove that case entirely. All you are asking is, while we are waiting to see to the end of this case of terrorism, can you give my client bail to go home and attend to his health and be coming to court from home? If the court gives an order after listening to the opposing and the proposing view and gives a ruling on it, it is called ruling. It is not judgment, because the judgment will come when this whole case is dispensed with. Did you understand that now? So now, when an order, for instance, can be embedded in a ruling. So an order can be embedded in a ruling, and it is always much more embedded in a judgment. Now, if the court gives a ruling and say, grant this person bail, and the court further takes a step to make a statement and direct DSS that tomorrow you must release Nnamdi Kanu, that statement directed at DSS is an order of the court inside that ruling that they have just made. But it is not the judgment yet, because the judgment will come after the whole case is dispensed with. Now, when it now comes to the second leg of your question, whether pre-trial, bail, what was the word you used before? I think I captured pre-trial.
Yeah, pre-trial and re-bail.
And okay, re-bail. Well, in law, we usually do not employ that word, but when you say pre-trial bail, I want to believe that what you mean is a bail before trial. And a bail before trial can happen at the court in most cases, as we have been explaining all this while, and it can happen at the bus stop of the police. For instance, if the police or any other arresting authority decides to give administrative bail, that is what we call it in legal parlance, administrative bail. That can be a pre-trial bail, which simply means bail pending the trial. So that is what it simply means in ordinary man language. Now, when you come to real bail, well, that like I said earlier, is not really the right word there, but the real bail, I want to believe that what you mean is whether somebody that had been granted bail before can still be granted bail. Even if somebody has been granted bail before and the bail was revoked at some point, nothing stops that person whose bail has been revoked from approaching the court again to ask for another bail. That could be what you mean by a re-bail. Now,
that's exactly what it is.
So this time around, the person said, I have been granted bail before, and unfortunately, I breached the condition of the bail, and the court revoked that bail and took the person back into custody. So, in such situation, because bail is a constitutional matter, like I said before, you can ask for bail as many times as you want, as long as there is a change of circumstance for you to introduce, because you cannot come back again making the same argument over and over again. It will be as if you are wasting the time of the court. But if there is any new dimension that comes upon you after the first one has been revoked, you can bring it up and ask for the bail. Although a person whose bail has been revoked for violating his bail condition no longer have good reputation before the court, but the lack of good reputation before the court will not stop you from asking. You still have right to ask because it's a conditional matter. But one thing about bail is that the law gives the judge who is ruling on your bail application so much power. The law did not explain how the judge will exercise it. It simply said that the judge should act at his or her own discretion. But in doing so, he, the judge, must act judicially and judiciously. That word judicially and judiciously is wide. It seems vague. There is no simple, general, acceptable definition of what is judicially and judiciously. But the summary of it is that the judge must act in the interest of justice and public policy in granting a bail. So, but when you feel that a judge has exercised that discretion wrongly, nothing stops you from approaching another judge, this time around by way of appeal. And that brings me to Onyendu's case. And again, to defy a little, I don't think Mazi Kenna, I want to believe that he didn't really, this our English, sometimes a borrowed language for us and we are not English people. But I just want to defy a little by what he said, that the statement that Supreme Court made by saying that the bail of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu ought not to have been revoked, that it would have served as a persuasive statement to Justice Mbita Nyago. The only area I want to disagree with him is that should not be a persuasive word. It should be an order. He should take that word serious as an order that is coming from the highest court of the land. With another layer of court above it.
Court did not make it that.
Yeah, if you look at this issue of Supreme Court, for instance, we have to get something clear. These people are acting on script. The Supreme Court were acting on script because they were tasked by a paymaster to do that hatchet job. At the Supreme Court, they sit 5 men in the panel because they are sitting on appeal. It's not a case of first instance. If it's a case that is coming up for the first time at the Supreme Court, in Nigeria they will sit 7. But because it is an appeal that is arising from the decision of the Court of Appeal, there were 5. And 2 among that 5 agreed with the decision of the Court of Appeal in favor of Onyendu Nnamdi Kanu. But they needed to get one person to join the other rebel group to make up what they want to achieve. And they got one person. It now became a split judgment of a split judgment of 3 against 2. So, and in law, it is the majority judgment that will always be applicable, because each of the judges, each of the 5 judges, have right to make their own independent judgment on the case. And once 3 of them have agreed to be on the same side, now they have knocked off the decision of the other 2, because the majority has carried the vote, as in this case now. But just try to understand that those majority were doctored majority. They were compromised majority. I am sorry, I'm a lawyer qualified to practice in Nigeria, but I have looked at the case of Onyendu and how it has been handled. It had defied all known precedents. And with all due respect, if at all, to the judge, because as a lawyer I just have to choose my word, but with all due respect, they did not act in the interest of justice. They acted in the interest of their paymaster in giving that ruling, and giving that judgment on that day by saying, go back and face your trial, or simply saying the High Court ought not to revoke the bail. Now, once you found the next word to say is, I hereby restate that bail. That 3 words would have ended all this discussion long ago. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you very much. Very solid points. Mazi Kenland, talking about Binta Nyako, did she have any grounds for objection to Onyendu's bail restoration? And isn't action? I know we've already said that the Supreme Court, hit their tails in between their legs in that pronouncement or acknowledgement, and failed woefully to make it a ruling, an order, a judgment, whatever you call it, as you have completely explained and defined all 3 times. Did that allow Binta Nyako now to use her own discretion or to be alone to herself in terms of restoring Onyendu's bail?
Thank you very much. I think I have to use an explicit word here by saying it's disgraceful for Binta Nyako not to have reinstated Onyendu's bail. I don't think it did her any good. And I don't think her reputation amongst other judges, especially outside the zoo system, will be respected anymore. When a superior court makes a comment that expressly means that the person that you granted bail and the state brought the person before you did not jump that bail. In other words, there was no basis for you to even go to his house, and there was no basis for you to rearrest him. In order to have kept her judicial image clean, Binta Nyako should have reinstated that bail. Just as my learned colleague here said, the thing that they are doing in Nigeria is a script, in the sense that in terms of legality, in terms of judicial purity, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case has been abandoned. If you are going in terms of this is the law of the land, you cannot talk about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case anymore, because they have abandoned every sound legal rule applicable in Nigeria. So there was no grounds at all for Justice Binta Nyako to have objected to reinstating the bail of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. It is so disgraceful, and I have to use this word, and I wish that she hears it. It's even more disgraceful that she would want to come back to sit on that case again, bearing in mind that she has recused herself. It is very, very disgraceful. So she has no grounds. That is the simple and short answer to object.
She has lost every morality, every legality, and every integrity to adjudicate on that matter. That's why Onyendu was there in the court the last time, telling her unequivocally that she is recused and she stands recused. Dear listeners, you are still listening to the UK Time Out on Radio Biafra. We are discussing this Sunday over Chorie, restoration of Onyendu's bail, a matter of urgency. I have with me in the studios very sound legal minds who are also IPOB principal officers. By the way, for those of you who know nothing, I'm saying that IPOB is a bunch of uneducated, unenlightened, miscreants and all the nonsense people who are very ignorant say we have everything in Biafra, we have everything at every level of human operation that can run a system efficiently, and that is why we are fighting for Biafra restoration. We have all it takes, all the resources, human and otherwise, to run a modern country that will compete favorably in the Committee of Nations. That's what the enemies are scared of, but we must continue. So I must thank you, gentlemen, Maaze Iken and Joko, our IPOB regional coordinator in Scotland, and his deputy, Maaze Alphonsus Azubike, the deputy regional coordinator IPOB Scotland of the IPOB United Kingdom family. Both gentlemen are legal practitioners, as Mazikena in particular is a senior prosecutor here in Scotland, in the UK as well. So they know what they are talking about. Gentlemen, and also listeners, I was minded to say one time we are in the home stretch, time is far gone, and also I want to open the lines today so that the gentlemen in the studio can educate us better. As I keep saying on this program, is a lecture room, is a learning class. It's better that we learn than we are talking or maybe asking questions and get away. The deadlines will be open, will come, maybe next Sunday, and then you can make your contributions. You can also send in your questions and contributions to us to our other IPOB UK platforms. Gentlemen, as we hit the home stretch, let me ask you, Onyendu's current legal team have attempted to apply for the restoration of Onyendu's bail. All of a sudden, we don't have anything again. As the Mazikena rightly said, they don't need to apply to Binta and Yakut's court anymore. And you also rightly alluded that if a particular judge refuses or declines your bail application, you can also go to another judge. And you can apply as many times as you want. So, Onyendu's current legal team, are they capable of winning this battle to restore Onyendu's bail? In fact, without being disrespectful, I don't even understand what they are doing. Frankly speaking, they don't seem to be competent. So what is your assessment, Mars, and what hopes we have with them?
But just to answer you straight on that question, without prejudice to the right of Onyendu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to choose his counsel, and this has always been said over and over again by the IPOB leadership, but for the purpose of some people who may have not heard this and who are listening just now, just take this to the bank that Onyendu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, just like you or any other human being anywhere in the world, have right to make a decision on who represents them in court. Nobody can take that right away from you as long as you are a man of full age and capacity to make a decision. So Onyendu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu have made a decision by choosing who he wants to represent him. The question of whether he made an informed decision is a different kettle of fish, and we are not here to sit on appeal over the decision that was made by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu as to the right of his counsel. However, I am just expressing my personal opinion as a human being. I'm not expressing the opinion of IPOB leadership in this circumstance. I do not, as a person, have confidence in the present legal team of Onyendu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. They are doing their best as lawyers. They may be brilliant. Some of them are far older than me as lawyers in the bar, but I have my right to make assessment of what I believe they can achieve in this situation. I have no confidence in them, and they have not impressed me at all by folding their hands and refuse to take further step after their bail application was refused. In fact, they have strong evidence to approach the Court of Appeal in this situation. And the Court of Appeal, who must be three sitting together to hear them, this time around is no longer going to be Justice Binta Nyako alone. If you go to Court of Appeal, three justices of the Court of Appeal, three wise men as they are usually called, whether they are still wise now or not. But the truth is that three persons must sit to listen to that bail application. And you will present a judgment of the Supreme Court as one of the exhibits you are going to annex to your application to show them where the Supreme Court successfully captured that Onyendu's bail ought not to have been revoked, that any person in his circumstances would have run away for his dear life the way he did. And again, that the judge, what the judge did by revoking his bail is a manifest of bias. So the Supreme Court said so clearly, and Mazi Ikenna here have clearly addressed that judge. She is a bunch of disgrace to the legal profession, because she, whatsoever thing she got on the last day of the court of appearance of Onyendu, she deserved it. In all my years of practicing law in Nigeria, I have seen violent criminals and some accused persons who are rude to the court. But I have never seen any accused person that was as bold as Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in the last court appearance. Her words are words on the marble. If you like, take it away from him, but it has gone down in the annals of history. As long as we are still alive, and even those who are coming after us, they will assess the record. They will see the right word. And I am particularly happy that Onyendu, as always, as an intelligent man he is, he was in the right frame of his mind on that day. And the right word to use to address the court did not fail him. We all are human beings. Sometimes you may want to say something and you will be looking for the right words to express yourself. But on that day, Onyendu wanted to say something, and God was with him, and he picked the right word to disgrace the judge openly in the open court. And the judge was helpless, as you could see. She lost her voice in the process and doesn't know what to say again. She brought herself to that state of disrepute. I've never seen a judge disgraced that way, but she brought that upon herself, and she got what she deserved. So in this situation, I expect the legal team of Onyendu, since Binta Nyako have refused it, but in fact, by now they would have given them a date today for hearing. I know that whenever it comes to case of IPOB members and Nnamdi Kanu in particular, the Court of Appeal normally take a long time before they give us a date for hearing. But if they had swiftly filed appeal challenging that refusal of bail, the way they filed appeal in other cases, by now they would have gotten a date for hearing. And when that hearing is taking place, then they would have gotten a date closer for judgment, for the court to rule on that bail application. And if they are not still satisfied, they can still go back to that Supreme Court who earlier made that statement that that bail ought not to have been revoked. And the Supreme Court would have found it difficult to say a different thing because they respect the judgment of their brothers. And they don't like to say 1 and 2 within the same year. They would have respected that word, although we are not removing the fact that all the courts in Nigeria belongs to the government, and the government manipulates each of them. In fact, they will just make a phone call to the chief judge and tell them those to assemble to hear the case. But at the end of the day, just the same way they disgrace themselves in that judgment by not saying the right thing, they would have still disgraced themselves again if they refuse to say the right thing, and it will continue to count against them. So, simply put, I do not have confidence in the present legal team of Onyendu, but that is my personal opinion. That is without prejudice to the right of Onyendu.
You are not alone. I don't think any of us have confidence in them, with all due respect, and they have not done anything to end our confidence or to justify anyone that Onyendu even reposed in them. I'm not being harsh here or overly critical. We are just being very objective based on our observations. What we could see, I mean, even in the court, Onyendu more or less rubbish the legal team as well, because they were, I mean, their incompetence was plain for everybody to see. That Binta had to ask Onyendu whether he is taking over representation from his legal team, and he said yes. So, and that is a big slap on their face. And I have it, we don't gossip here, but I have it on good authority too. They are making moves now to bring Sam Mazi Agabi, Chief Agabi, I must say, back into it. Maybe that will help, because our lawyer Jimako, especially, has proven to be not just incompetent, but also very unreliable, because he's double deals. So you can't represent such a high-profile case of a freedom fighter if you are somebody of dubious and questionable character, or you have duplicity in your operation, the way you behave and conduct yourself, and puts a big question mark on whatever you're doing in terms of honesty, transparency, and integrity. Well, thank you, Mazi. We'll be rounding up now. Must thank you both once again. But before we leave, both of you, Mazi Kenna, starting with you first, what must IPOB leadership and the membership do now to get Onyendu back? Because it's a matter of urgency.
Thank you very much. IPOB must maintain its efforts, especially in trying to make sure, just as my learned colleague pointed out, that another attempt is made in the Nigerian cause to seek for Onyendu's bail to be reinstated. That is an avenue that we must chart. The issue of his legal representatives is now very vital, because that particular angle of bail must not be abandoned, since it is an avenue that has a green light now, a bright light in fact. We must make sure that we do whatever we do to, whether it is in making contacts with the current legal team or going through Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's relatives to try and see how we can be persuasive enough to add to the legal rules that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has in order to reapply for the bail to be reinstated, whether on appeal based on the previous one, or to find a way to push that case forward, because we cannot sit back down and fold our arms. Again, we have to as well bear in mind that this whole issue of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is now more political than legal, in the sense that if you look at Sunday Igbo, you will see that he's a Yoruba man, but the Yorubas are at West joined together with him. That's why he's not undergoing this kind of travels that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is going through. But the lackluster attitude that our own chiefs, our own governors, our own personalities adopt towards Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is very, very pathetic and disgraceful. If there is one mind put together by every person in the southeast, whether governors or rich men or state legislators, they must make sure, even religious leaders, this will be persuasive enough. But because there has not been that one mind, there has not been that one voice, this is the reason why Nigeria is behaving in such a manner as if the Southeast cannot do anything. Why can't they do that in Sunday Igbo? Why is it Mazi Nnamdi Kanu that is being held there? Sometimes even the thought of this irks me to the point that it gives me sleepless nights. Because I know that if the state governors, who most of the time, I term some of them as the handmaidens of all these colonial masters, if they put hands together, speak with one voice, give an ultimatum to the Nigerian state, something must be done. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu would not have been there today. So we should ensure that we reapproach, if we have done that before, his legal representatives to see how we can add on to the team to make sure that an application is made again towards this, the reinstatement of his bail. Thank you very much.
What will be your closing statement tonight?
Mazi Kenna have been able to make vital points, and I'm still going to make my closing statement in that regard. For this time around, to call things by their name. One is that all hands in IPOB must be on deck. I know that some people may not be happy by the way things may have been done, but we Igbos have an adage that says that a man that is going home will never get tired along the way until you get to your home. So until we achieve that ultimate aim, which is one in the immediate, getting our leader out of the unlawful custody, we will never rest. Now, to put it in the context, part of what should be done is also to look at that legal team. Let us try as much as we can to make statements to assess Onyendu whoever he is, so that he will know that IPOB really want to get involved in making decisions regarding his counsel, because he has become, he's a public figure. He has lost, as it were, that independent right of making that decision alone, because his situation is also affecting us. We want to be genuinely involved in choosing who represents him. And Agabi, which was mooted, is a good lawyer, brilliant lawyer. He has connection. He was a former Attorney General of the Federation. but he is a pan-Nigeria. That is the problem I have with him. So, and he will always act in the interest of that contraction rather than the interest of the law when the need arises. So, assuming Ozekome as a person, even if Ifeanyi is no longer going to be in the team, but assuming Ozekome as a person can come back, that would be better. Or we look out to shop for another one. That is one. Then two is that we must, anywhere IPOB is anywhere in the world, intensify our protest, peaceful protest for his release. That has to be simultaneously intensified anywhere IPOB is outside Nigeria, because they cannot do protests in Nigeria because they will always kill them there if they do so. But anywhere IPOB is present, anywhere outside Nigeria, they have to intensify effort, going to the relevant authority and relevant places and venue to make demand, foreign missions and order, to ask, and even to some of these international human rights organizations. You may no longer be to the government houses or the government places, but go to some of these international human rights organizations, Amnesty International and also UN human rights commissions, so that we make protests and let it be re-registered to their mind. They have been making statements, but they still have to know so that they will investigate more. Then again, the political angle, because it is more political as Maziken have said. Now, the IPOB leadership should be writing formal letters to the Southeast Governors Forum to make their demands known, and all the Southeast senators, Southeast members of the House of Rep, anywhere they are, let it be coming to them every now and again. If they said they want peace in the Southeast, and some people somewhere are using the name of Nnamdi Kanu wrongly to make sure that that peace does not come. If they really want to see an end to their security challenges, this is one of those issues they must take seriously. So the IPOB leadership, even though they may not be happy with the government establishments in Nigeria, but they should also think of communicating them officially for record purposes, even if they do not get back to the IPOB. Some governors were using it as a political statement. This is the time for them to re-echo it. And as the election is coming closer, they can turn it a strong political campaign issue anywhere they are, because that has to be done as earlier as tomorrow morning, so that we achieve results, so that before Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will clock 4 years in that unlawful incarceration, he would have been out. Thank
you very much, thank you, Mazi Ken Nanjoko and Mazi Azubike Afonso, for being on this program tonight and for your wonderful, insightful and incisive analysis into this particular subject. Someday we'll come back to it as well. I'm sure you'll be more than capable and available to return on this program. For tonight, that is where we draw the curtains. A massive thank you to Maazi Chukwuemeka Lozie, who is our anchor, and all those who support the weekly production of the UK Time Out on Radio Biafra. I remain your host, Ichie Nwachinemere, the National Coordinator of IPOB UK. Until we come again next Sunday, good night and God bless.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chineke. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, the anchors.